I kind of want to touch on this post that you talked about. You talked about hitting protein and fiber, but also considering the processed intake. So you kind of had uh, two sides of the screen. And
Yep.
your Instagram's great, by the way.
Thank
A
you.
great follow if you're not already following. Um, it was like a high protein, high fiber diet, like kind of the same, but it was 80% processed, 20% unprocessed type meal, and then 80% unprocessed, 20% processed. Then it was such a different plate. Yet if you were just being the macro bro, like we were talking about, like
Yep.
just hit your protein and fiber, bro, and you're all good. It can be a very, very different diet. And to come back on what you touched on earlier, I feel like that's what the next kind of movement is in the industry. Or maybe it's just online, but I feel like people are like, sweet, I got the calories and macros thing, but what's next? And I feel like that's where the conversation around processed foods and percentage of kind of foods, whether they're kind of like delicious versus nutritious. I feel like these conversations are really coming to the forefront of what people are consuming.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the whole term of processed and ultra processed really came into play in the last couple of years, and it's a very valid point. Ultra processed foods are highly palatable. They are engineered to taste good and to make us eat more of them. You know, the food industry is spending millions or billions on that every year. There's no doubt about that. I think in an ideal world, for me personally, I would say that my diet or somebody's diet is around 80% whole foods or, as little processed as possible, and then 20% of processed or ultra processed. Because you also, first of all, you have to be aware of where does somebody live, what availability do they actually have to fresh food, especially in the wintertime. It's not, I'm very blessed that I live in a country where it's widely available, but that's not always the case for everybody. So you have to be careful there. And it's very entitled, I think, to say, no, everything has to be fresh and everything has to be non-processed, Yeah, if you live somewhere where maybe you have whole foods and that's great. But it's not the case for everybody. So and sometimes it's convenient. Sometimes it's just, if you have a busy family life or you have busy work life, which most of us we have, you don't always have the time to cook everything from scratch. And I do get sometimes slated if I online if I make a dish and there was one dish and I used a pasta sauce from the jar, which was like disaster for most people. And I thought, listen,
What are you doing?
or if you use a spice mix, I mean, come on, there's no, people worry about the sugar and spice mix. You're only using tiny amounts, in the greater scheme of things.
5 grams.
Exactly, it's like it's nothing. So you have to be realistic. But if you look at your overall diet throughout the day, and if it's the other way around, if it's 80% processed, then the volume of food that you're getting is actually much less. So the portions are much smaller, which means that it's you have less, your satiety levels are much lower, and you're probably thinking about food a lot more. There's a lot more food noise going on because you're not getting this volume of food, which you could be getting if your food was less processed, and even if it's the same calories, same proteins, and same fiber.
Yeah, I have a similar saying that I picked up when I was coming up as a personal trainer. Around 2017, 2018, I kind of just learned the 80% nutritious, 20% delicious, which is kind of the same thing. It just
Yeah.
sounds a bit cooler because it rhymes, but
Yeah. That's good. I
um,
like it. I like it.
yeah, but I operate under the same kind of principles. Like, uh, it does come down to calories and macros and all that kind of stuff, but there is nuance in terms of how you feel, and I feel like that's personally where I am. So in 2019, I did this thing that I kind of look back. I'm like, man, what a dick. It was so stupid. But I did this thing where I did the ice cream challenge. So I had 30 days where I ate 3 scoops of gelato every day. Now I have a pretty high calorie amount. So
Yeah.
3 scoops of gelato was 900 calories, but my maintenance is about 3,500. So it's not really that much when you
Yeah.
look at it like that.
And
But I just kind of wanted to, sorry, I just kind of wanted to prove a point that it does come down to calories. So I lost like 5 kilos in 30 days, relatively extreme, but like, I went from lean to like very lean to show you can eat ice cream and get lean. I was throwing the balance off though in terms of 80/20,
Yeah,
because and there were days where I would like just have the gelato for dinner and the rest of the day was like good foods and stuff, but like just having gelato for dinner is absolutely stupid. Like I was hungry going to
yeah,
sleep, waking up early because I wanted breakfast. And that really impacts like how you feel, how you train, how you work. And the food noise is real because it does impact how you operate throughout the day. It does impact like kind of how frustrated you are when you wake up and how kind you are to people around. And that's something that I've kind of been getting to with clients as well, where it's not just about calories and macros. It is in terms of body composition, but then there is how you feel, how you function, and how you operate, which is
yeah.
probably more important for most people than like how good they look naked. Because how often are we walking around naked?
I know. I know. But you made a valid point that if, for somebody like you, you'd have a very relatively high maintenance calorie level. So even for somebody who needs to gain weight, be that from a health perspective or muscle building perspective, it can actually be challenging to get that amount of calories from whole foods because
It's so hard.
you'd have
It's
to
so
eat
hard.
the
So much
volumes of food.
fiber, and you feel
Exactly.
like bloated.
Yeah.
So
So
sorry
you
to,
can
yeah.
no, sorry, go
You go.
ahead. Yeah, but
No,
so
no, you go.
you can apply the opposite of the principle, not just not in terms of processed foods, but in terms of volume. You can eat much more of peanut butter, for example. You don't have to worry about those kind of things. So in that case, it can actually be really helpful to go for the lower volume foods, but still relatively good um, quality.
Yeah, I deal with that myself because you know I can't personally relate to people that are on a fat loss journey because I've never had that problem. I've been super active. I've always been on super high calories. My mum used to say that I had worms when I was younger just because I ate so many calories, like my dad called me monkey because I was like climbing all the time. Those were my kind of natural tendencies.
Yeah,
I wasn't like it's just kind of my genetics and my tendencies. And even when I talk, like look at me, I'm moving my hands around a lot. I have this kind of high neat level type thing, and I also train. I like sport. It kind of plays into my favor. And I have clients that also want to gain weight, and it's kind of it kind of throws you off because you think I need to eat healthy. I need to have like avocado and lots of broccoli and lots of cauliflower and stuff like that. But yeah, it's really hard. Like if
yeah,
I really jack up a meal with fruits and vegetables and stuff, I can't eat that. Like I'll have 500 calories and I'm like, I need 1,000.
yeah,
So like I do put like honey, peanut butter. Now I'm on the full fat stuff where, back in the day it was like I want my low fat, 97% fat free Greek yogurt. Now I'm getting full. I'm getting full fat milk and all this kind of stuff. And I'm trying to teach that to other people as well that I'm coaching and even pushing out online that yes, it's about non-processed foods and like keeping calories low for most people, but there is some people out there that have a very fast metabolism that have goals of building
yeah.
and have to be in a surplus and things like that. And it is kind of a weird thing where you do have to lean into higher calorie foods and potentially a kind of high percentage of processed foods
Yes,
in some way.
yes, because it will help you to actually achieve that goal. Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Mm.
so what are some ways that you kind of encourage more calories for those people? Like if there are people, let's say like myself out there that do want to gain weight, it is more of a minority than a majority. But
Mhm.
what kind of tips do you have?
Yeah, I would definitely say, the like you say, the honey, the peanut butter, oil, all these kind of things. They're easy to add and they're easy calories to add because they're relatively calorie dense. And yes, actually keeping the volume of food a little bit lower because, like you said, otherwise you get so much fiber that actually you'd feel uncomfortable.
It
And
is.
splitting it up, into several meals. If you don't want to have just 3 meals, make sure you have more, like 4 or 5 meals, so you can split them into smaller meals, and just trying to find a rhythm that way.
Yeah, one thing I also recommend is trying to drink calories. I find that a lot easier.
Yes, yeah,
So I start the day with like, when I'm really going for the calories, I'll have like a 1,500 calorie smoothie in the morning that it's huge. It's like 1.5 liters, whole milk and peanut butter and oats and all this kind of stuff. It takes me quite a while to have it, but it's easier to get down than like trying to eat 1,500 calories of fruits and
yeah.
vegetables and stuff like that. It would just never happen.
Whereas you see,
Um,
the majority of my clients would be the opposite. They, like, 1,500 calories would nearly be their daily allowance if they're in a calorie deficit.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Usually kind of 17, 16, 17, 1800 calories. But then there is this fear of eating, not fear of eating, but what I often hear is, especially if I kind of show my portions, people will say, oh, I could never eat this much. And then I say, but you have to understand there's a difference between calories and volume of food. This plate might look big, but it's only 400 or 500 calories. So it's a relatively decent sized meal. If you're somebody who's eating 17, 1800 calories a day, then that's kind of what you want to go for. But people just look at the volume and they think I could never eat that much. So it's actually getting them to eat more and understanding that they're not getting more calories.
So how do you convince, and it's often women,
Yeah.
how do you convince these people to eat more? Because I get that too. Like I train a few women. I do predominantly train men, but I do train a handful of women that are on, somewhere between 15 to 1800 calories, and they're like, that's too much. Or like, I can't eat that much. Like, can we be on 1400? Like, can we try 1200 first?
Because
How do
that's
you
the
kind of,
because and I
how do you
said
walk
that's
them back off the plank?
yeah, because they'll say, oh, I can only lose weight at 1200 calories. Yeah, but it's not working, obviously.
And maybe
um,
it's not 1200.
yeah, and that, yeah. It takes time. It takes time, and in that case, sometimes it's helpful for somebody to have a meal plan where you give them specific recipes, and you actually bring them to get them to cook these meals, and eventually, over time, they realize, okay, I can actually eat this much food, and it's a case of practice and giving it enough time.